Okay, so the topic sentence of my paper was "Let's be the generation that changes the way law enforcement and the judicial system in the United States treats people of color in comparison to white people." In my first paragraph, I kind of just explained the idea of the caste system as the concept that one is born into a ranking in society and they cannot move out of it, and how it kind of will continue to thrive, but the effectiveness in controlling the race will decrease over time, and that the rebirth of the caste system is a recurring event kept alive by those falling to the bottom of this fear who fear falling to the bottom of the system, which is the white Americans. So the a topic that I connected it to was the concept of colorblindness, and I used the source "What Does It Mean to Be White" to define it as pretending that we don't notice race or that race has no meaning. This pretense denies racism and holds it in place. And mass incarceration was kind of a result of colorblindness, and I used the quote from the book: "If we had actually learned to show love, compassion, and concern across racial lines during the civil rights movement, rather than going colorblind, mass incarceration would not exist today." So basically, like, colorblindness is what's keeping people of color like being discriminated against, because without identifying there's a problem, you can't make a change. And the 13th, I focused on mass incarceration in the war on drugs. So basically, during the war on drugs, it targeted people of color, and that as a result, that's who make up most of the prison population. So I use the quote: "Black men account for roughly 6.5% of the US population. They make up 40.2% of the prison population." And the Bureau of Justice reported that 1 in 3 young males are expected to go to jail or prison during their lifetime. And I liked this quote. Usually, Black or Hispanic, Latino, they were getting long sentences, and if you're white, you're pretty much getting slapped on the wrist. That just kind of shows the inequality in like the punishments they were getting. And I talked about the way that law enforcement was, how like different they were treating people of color to white Americans. So I talked about the cash incentives, free training, equipment they were given to keep the war on drugs thriving. And I used the quote: "Officers learn how to use minor traffic violation as a pretext stop someone, how to lengthen a routine traffic stop and leverage it into a search for drugs, how to obtain consent from reluctant motorists, and how to use drug sniffing dogs to obtain probable cause." And that's like what they were taught in the training. And then in this paragraph, I talked about how life after prison is nearly impossible for someone to succeed in, just because how they set up, how like the government sets up life for a felon after. And I also talked about the effectiveness of prison. Like, society has this thought that prison is supposed to used as an opportunity to rehabilitate a citizen who had broken the law, but it often just destroys communities and sets released prisoners up for failure, as shown by the rates of return to prison. And then I kind of just concluded it that if changes aren't made in law enforcement, the progress the country has made since slavery may start to regress. But I'm kind of optimistic about the outlook on it, and I kind of view it as just another bump in the history. And I thought this quote really helped to support that idea that when the system of mass incarceration collapses, and history is any guide, historians will undoubtedly look back and marvel that such an extraordinary, comprehensive system of racialized social control exists in the United States.